everyone. So last week we've discussed about functions, and in this video I'm gonna introduce a special functions, more specifically about strings. Now in reality, our programs or any applications that we use involves primarily with a data, and that data is not just numbers or integers or floating numbers, floating digit, but for most programs or applications that we use, before we use them, we usually provide our data that are personal data, and that we term as strings. And like most of the programs utilizes strings. So when we say it's strings, so it's composed of characters, and depends on the language, written language, it can be composed of different. So for example, for English language, we have alphabets, 26 characters from A, B, C, D to Z, and then we have special characters, which are the punctuations that also counts, and right now sophisticatedly we have emojis. But for emojis, we're not going to cover it since we're just doing console applications. So I know that the one that you've been using is using graphics, so you can interact, but what we are doing in our class is just a console application wherein it's just black and white. However, the principles, the basics are still the same. It's just the difference between with GUI applications, it involves with graphics, right? Okay, let's go back to the strings. So to formally maybe create a sample program or application of our own, which will be what you will be doing maybe by next week, I'm gonna introduce what will be the final project, which involves our inputs. So we've been using integers a lot. Then to create a real program scenario, we're gonna use strings. So what are examples? So for example, again, for the class record, involves the student ID, because depending on the system, but usually for student ID it is composed of integers. And then after the student ID, you have your student name, and the student name is a string type. So in this video, we're gonna discuss somewhat a special functions. The functions only designed for strings. So what do we do usually for strings? So what we usually do is, of course, we do copy and we paste it. Whether, of course, we input it, but given the input, we copy, paste, or cut. We count the number of letters. We compare words and many more. So we'll only cover the basic special string functions. and many more. It can be address, right, is strings, right? So to introduce, what is string? So string is a data type composed of characters. So in the English alphabet, you have A to Z, and we have special characters when we have like the percent, dot, question mark, exclamation, and many more, all what you can find on your keyboard. So it is non-numeric. However, numbers can be a string, can be represented as character. So it depends. So if you want to use the decimal number 0 to 9 as character instead of numbers, so how do you represent this? So if you want the numbers represented as characters, instead of just writing zeros, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we enclosed it into a quotation marks, single or double quotation marks. So if you mean that 1 is not a digit, but it is a character, so we will write 1 as 1 like this, or 1, or any number as long as you enclose it with quotation marks. So that is a string. So words in the English term. Right. Now to declare a string, how do we declare a string? So to declare a string, the string data type is a character. And if you remember array, so string is an array of characters, and that when we declare them, we use the data type char and put it in array. So we have the variable name or the character array name, and we indicate the size. This is the data type. Of course, default is characters. So for example, we have a string name, and the name size would be, say, 20. So we have a string name, and the number of characters we can put in the name is 20. So this would mean, or let me just have 10 first. So if we declare a name with size 10, that will be shown as abstractly. So we have a character here, array that has size 10. This is 10. So still the same. This is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's size 10. So when you declare this will be the abstract representation. We have a variable array name with size 10. Okay, next. So how do we do declaration and initialization? So when we say initialization, we initialize the value of the string. So to initialize the value of the string, we do so the data type character char, and the identifier of the array, so let's just put name, and how many characters will you put on the name, so let's just say put 10. Now to initialize the name, the equal sign, and then use quotation marks, and let's just say the name is Sheila. Here. So abstractly, you have the array name, and what is in the name value is Sheila. So what do you observe? So here we have size 10, but our character is only 6 letters. So what happens with the remaining? So here, the character array doesn't need to be that you consume all. It can be lesser than or equal to. So what happens if you only have 6 letters and then you have size of 10, though you can add more. The last character after that will be a null value, which means there's no more, or that's the end, which is null. You still have this space, but the values are null. Okay, so that's how you initialize. You use quotation, so like an array, but it's characters, and to initialize you use quotation marks. And it must be that the number of characters is less than or equal to the size of your array. So what happens if, let's just say you have, so this is 6, but you only have 5, but you input Sheila, which is 6. So the last letter would not be occupied. So since you only have 5 characters, or size of 5, what will happen is only this one will be stored, since the size is only 5, but your name has 6, so it will not occupy. So remember that when you store a string, it must be the string number should be less than or equal to the set size of the array. So if that would happen, then you will receive an interrupt or error. What else? Now, in string, so we mentioned about words, so let's just say I'm gonna write my name, Sheila Kabao. Usually there is a space, right? So space counts in string. Still a character, but it's a space. So if we would like, we've done declaration and initialization. So what if we input a string? How do we do that? So to input variables, we usually use scanf, right? And your data here. However, if you remember that scanf terminates when the enter key is pressed or the space, the ASCII value of space. So it terminates. So what if you want really to put your whole name, your first name, then space, and second name? So if you use scanf and you provide space, then this will be cut and this will no longer be counted. Also, in different compilers, if you want to input a string, you're gonna use another function which is scanfs, meaning to input a string. This one is only for maybe integers and floating numbers. And there's a syntax here. Now, to make our life easier, we're gonna introduce a new predefined function, and that to input a string, we're gonna use the gets function. So gets is put this string here to input, and the string is just a variable. Okay, so the gets function. So gets functions allows us to input string data. Let's say you want to input the name, and we have here a string name size 15, and you want to input the name since it's not initialized. So just gets, and inside the parenthesis is your string, which is the input name. And this only terminates when enter key is pressed. So when you call this, it will prompt you to input a data, and that if you input Sheila Kabao, my name, and then the output, you want to print it using printf, you can still use printf %s, and the value is name. So the output will be Sheila. And since we've been using online GDB, right, as our compiler, however, this compiler does not support gets function. So instead of online GDB, we're gonna use another compiler. It's still online, though you can use as well devc. You can still use devc, but here I'm gonna just use online, and that instead of online GDB, you can use another one as long as your compiler supports the gets function. So here, maybe the program miss. I think some of you are using this one. So I'll provide the link later, and as well as provide demonstration later using the programmis.com on the C Programming Online compiler. As well as sample code on the declaration of string, how you initialize the value of a string. So in the demo, so declare string, we initialize the value of a string, initialize, and display the value of a string using printf, and input string using gets function. In program gmail.com. C programming.